Welcome to Hour of Purpose. May your journey today be paved with radiant health, boundless financial abundance, deep unconditional love, and profound inner peace. May your spiritual awakening continue to elevate your frequency, guiding you toward your highest and most powerful timeline. Welcome on board, Chosen One. The truth we are about to unveil is heavy, yet fiercely liberating. Let us begin with the one frequency the enemy absolutely despises: your pristine, unbreakable clarity. They swore up and down that your aura was harmless, that your energy was incredibly easy to read and manipulate. They were utterly convinced you would never comprehend their shadowy movements, their hidden plots, or their desperate attempts to stay 10 steps ahead of your intuition. It is almost amusing how loudly they broadcasted their toxic intentions while you sat in profound stillness, the only one truly listening to the universe. Look at the massive energetic shift now. Look who is drowning in their own uncomfortable vibrations. Look who suddenly wants to rewind the karmic clock to rewrite the past, pretending they did not underestimate your divine power so loudly that the entire universe heard their arrogance. The very souls who continuously mocked your gentle spirit are now losing precious sleep, tossing and turning in the lower frequencies. All because you absolutely refused to break. You did not just survive their darkness. You ascended, you leveled up into a realm they cannot even perceive. They looked at your radiant smile and assumed it was a white flag of surrender. They never realized it was a masterful divine strategy. They believed your softness made you a predictable target, and that your infinite patience was just a decorative trait of a weak mind. When they whispered that you were far too kind for this dense world, what their dark ego really meant was that you would be incredibly easy to manipulate. But their lower dimensional thinking was their ultimate downfall. Because while they thought you were simply absorbing their toxicity without fighting back, you were quietly studying their karmic loops. While they assumed you were defenseless, you were calculating every single energetic exchange. They truly believed they were the apex predators of the Matrix. But now, the crushing realization is setting in. The holy silence they once laughed at was merely the deep calm before your cosmic checkmate. The frequency of the unseen master let us speak about the dense atmosphere that surrounds you now. Have you noticed the shift in the quantum field? That strange, heavy quiet that fills the room the moment your aura leaves the space. That tense, palpable shift in their tone whenever your powerful name slips into their lower vibrational conversations. You can feel their awkward laughter when they try to make a joke at your expense, a desperate attempt to mask the undeniable fear vibrating behind their vocal cords. They try to wear a mask of indifference, but the universe never lies. There is a massive energetic tremor echoing around your victories. A freezing chill surrounds your triumphant comebacks, and a deafening silence confirms that their souls know exactly what they did to you, even if their fragile egos will never admit it out loud. And honestly, that is the most beautifully tragic part of their karmic cycle. They used to parade around your energy field, acting as if their heavy footsteps dictated your ultimate fate. Now, they tiptoe through your timeline, terrified that you might sense their presence, desperately trying to rewrite the beautiful story they tried so hard to ruin. When they projected their insecurities and called you too sensitive, their true hidden translation was, "I am terrified that your pure heart survived the immense damage I intentionally caused." When they tried to gaslight your intuition and claimed you were overreacting, what their spirit really meant was, "I am paralyzed by the fear that you will finally react and unleash your divine power." When they arrogantly claimed you would regret losing their presence, their soul was actually screaming, I deeply regret underestimating your spiritual magnitude. Look who is desperately scrambling for earthly explanations now. Look who is trying to decode the magnificent moves you have already vastly outgrown. The divine pivot, your spiritual transformation, did not just humble their egos. It stripped them bare and exposed their lowest frequencies to the blinding cosmic light. And do not pretend you did not feel that massive internal shift within your own chakra system. You know the exact moment the timeline permanently changed. It was not a loud, chaotic explosion. It was that one solitary night you sat alone in the dark, replaying every karmic lesson, and suddenly, the universe clicked the puzzle pieces together. Your tears literally dried up in the middle of your sorrow. Your physical shaking ceased right in the middle of your spiritual breaking. You woke up the very next morning, bathed in the kind of profound clarity that ordinary souls spend entire lifetimes chasing. That is the exact moment you became spiritually dangerous to the matrix. That is the morning you put on a smile as bright as an archangel, fully recognized the terrifying magnitude of your own divine capabilities, and finally started playing the universal game of chess. You played it with the masterful precision of the very devil they always accused you of being. Take a deep breath and remember the time you freely gave your forgiveness to someone, purely to maintain the energetic peace, even though their toxic soul never truly valued your grace. Remember the agonizing moments you poured your last drops of life force energy into someone, while they turned around and gave someone else the healed version of themselves that you had prayed so hard to meet. Remember when you remained fiercely loyal to empty vessels, people who could not even stay consistent in their own basic truths. You must understand this, chosen one. You did not lose a single piece of your soul in those dark moments. They did. They permanently lost access to a divine being that the universe painstakingly handcrafted through the fires of chaos. They lost access to a magnificent force of nature who can walk barefoot through Category 5 spiritual storms with a serene grin. Because earthly pain no longer holds any power over your frequency. They lost their golden ticket to a soul who loved them with raw, unfiltered honesty, while they were far too busy rehearsing their low vibrational lies in the mirror. The illusion of control. And do you know what makes this entire cosmic comedy hit even harder? They desperately whispered to their fragile friends that you were overly emotional. They convinced the karmic circles that you were obsessively attached. They painted a pathetic portrait of you as a fragile bird, just so their hollow egos could feel a fleeting sense of artificial power. Meanwhile, look at you now, breathing in the highest frequencies, fiercely alive. You are actively leveling up, doing the heavy shadow work, healing generational trauma, and quietly plotting your ultimate comeback from the higher realms. You are meticulously building your new reality with divine precision, while they are still endlessly looping through the exact same mistakes that completely ruined their last chapter. The universe truly possesses a dark sense of humor, does it not? Source energy intentionally let them believe they had won the battle, just so they would be completely, utterly unprepared for the fateful moment. You walked back into the physical world, totally unrecognizable in your radiant glory. Listen closely, chosen one. You are no longer the timid character they tried so desperately to destroy. You are the supreme protagonist that the entire cosmic storyline was always building toward. You are the one who stood still and watched their false empires burn to the ground. You memorized exactly where the treacherous flames originated. And then you rebuilt yourself from the ashes in a magnificent way that no dark entity ever saw coming. They do not fear your inherent kindness anymore. They are petrified by the hard truth that your kindness now has razor-sharp edges and absolute boundaries. They do not fear your massive heart. They are terrified by the undeniable fact that your heart absolutely refuses to die, no matter how much poison they injected into it. They do not fear your raw intelligence. They are paralyzed by how flawlessly you learned to hide it behind a blank stare, waiting until it was far too late for them to counter your devastating next move. The reveal of the mastermind. This is your ordained moment. The grand reveal, the ultimate plot twist written in the stars. The universe is finally done allowing these energetic parasites to play roles they never worked to earn. And you, my beautiful chosen one, you are finally stepping fully into the blinding truth that they tried so desperately to bury under their lies. You smiled with the grace of a celestial angel, and then you sat down in the shadows and played chess like a demon out for blood. And now, look at the board. The entire matrix belongs to you. Before we dive any deeper into the mechanics of their destruction, I need your aura completely locked in. I need you focused with the exact same lethal precision you utilized when you smiled so sweetly at their faces, while internally plotting 10 master moves ahead of their primitive comprehension. If you are truly ready to anchor into this supreme version of yourself, the sovereign being who smiles like an angel but calculates like the devil, then you must claim this energy. Anchor your silent signature into the quantum field. Mark your territory on this universal chessboard and boldly declare to the cosmos that you finally see the game for what it is. And you are never blinking again. This is no longer just a journey of mere survival. This is a masterclass in divine strategy. This is how you back the message that exposes every dirty secret they tried to hide in the dark. This is the fuel that empowers the story, giving you back your ultimate, undeniable edge. So now, chosen one, tighten your energetic grip on this present moment. Because we are about to deconstruct the entire chessboard, piece by agonizing piece. If you are truly vibrating at the frequency I believe you are, you will feel a magnetic pull deep inside your chest. That strange, ancient instinct screaming at you not to leave, not to look away. Because something embedded within these exact words is unlocking ancient, dormant pieces of your soul that were never, ever meant to stay buried in the dark. Stay with me in this high frequency. Stay sharp, stay completely dangerous. Let us confidently step into the very first move that sealed their fate. Move number 1, the smile that shattered empires, the very thing they laughed at and called innocent, was actually the first glaring siren that they were about to lose absolutely everything. Let us get brutally, unapologetically honest about that beautiful smile of yours. The one they swore was just cute, soft, sweet, and entirely harmless. The one expression they underestimated so catastrophically, it should genuinely be studied in the Akashic records as a historical disaster. That smile was never just a physical decoration for your face. It was a highly tactical, energetic nuke perfectly wrapped in human kindness. It was the eerie, unsettling quiet right before the hurricane of their inevitable downfall. And the most hilariously tragic part of this entire dynamic. They still walk around pretending they did not see the glaring red warning signs, even though the universe practically projected them in flashing neon lights right above your head. They walked straight into the abyss of their own cosmic downfall, grinning from ear to ear, entirely convinced they were the ones holding the reins of control. But look at the energetic scoreboard now. Look who is crying in the spiritual wilderness. They stared directly at your face and arrogantly assumed they knew the entire story of your soul. They thought your gentle softness equated to an absolute surrender. They believed your zen-like calm was just a symptom of inner confusion, and they mistook your polite aura for a desperate need to obey. They successfully deluded themselves into believing that a light worker like you could never, ever be a genuine threat to their dark matrix. But here is the devastating plot twist that their lower dimensional minds could never possibly prepare for. The absolute most dangerous souls in this universe are the ones who never feel the need to announce their divine power. The ones who smile beautifully while calculating complex karmic algorithms. The ones who silently listen instead of barking like wounded animals. The ones who willingly allow the enemy to feel completely safe and dominant, just long enough for them to totally expose their deepest energetic weaknesses. When they loudly mocked that bright smile of yours, they were unknowingly laughing at their own spiritual funeral. They simply lacked the frequency to comprehend that the sweetest, most angelic expressions frequently belong to the most ruthless spiritual strategists. They could not wrap their dense minds around the concept that your radiant warmth did not make you naive or foolish. It made you incredibly, dangerously patient. You were never losing the spiritual war. You were simply observing the battlefield. You were not lagging behind. You were intentionally masking your massive lead. And during that entire timeline, when they arrogantly thought they were teaching you harsh worldly lessons, you were actually mastering their predictable karmic patterns, their toxic habits, and their glaring energetic blind spots. You were silently watching exactly how they move through the world, how they manipulate the truth, how they frantically react to triggers, and how their fragile egos crumble under pressure. You memorized their entire dark playbook, completely downloading even the secret pages they firmly believed were hidden from the light. And now, just take a good look at the ultimate scoreboard of life. Who is still standing in their sovereign power? Who is continuously rising into higher dimensions? Who is rapidly becoming an unstoppable force of nature, completely unaffected by how many times they actively tried to break your spirit? The chosen one, of course, because you flatly refused to fight them in the mud with low vibrational claws and earthly chaos. You fought their darkness with divine calculation. You weaponized your holy silence. You allowed their bloated egos to completely overheat until it literally cooked their own malicious strategy from the inside out. The shift in frequency let us speak on that very exact moment. The profound instant they finally realized your smile was never the pathetic weakness they had confidently assumed. It was not a loud realization. It was not some dramatic, cinematic explosion. It was incredibly subtle, a sudden, panicked shift in the vibration of their eyes when they clearly saw that you were not devastated the way they had meticulously planned. It was a pathetic, nervous tremble in their voice when they suddenly realized you had entirely stopped reacting to their energetic bait. It was a heavy, suffocating hesitation when the reality dawned on them that they no longer held the remote control to your emotions. That is precisely when the sheer panic kicked into their nervous system. Because there is nothing that terrifies a dark entity more than permanently losing access to the naive version of you they so heavily relied upon for their energy supply. Have you ever noticed how they suddenly became sickeningly polite? How their previously harsh jokes became much softer? How their biting comments shifted into vague, careful whispers? How they spontaneously started asking you probing questions about your life that they never, ever cared about before? Let me be clear, chosen one. That was never genuine concern for your well-being. That was pure, unfiltered terror carefully disguised as innocent curiosity. They desperately needed to gauge exactly how much of the truth you actually knew. They were frantic to discover just how many light years ahead your higher mind was operating. They were dying to know if you had completely and utterly figured out their dark game. And spoiler alert for their fragile egos, you absolutely did. And trust my words, they felt that psychic blow. They felt that tiny, agonizing flicker of realization. That precise moment, they knew the entire cosmic board had just flipped upside down. They finally realized you were never the disposable pawn they thought they were playing with. You were the master player all along, the sovereign being who looks down and sees the complete layout of the matrix, the one whose mind is already operating 5 lifetimes ahead of their current thought. You are the one who can sit back and smile radiantly while their entire false reality burns to ash, because you finally integrated a profound spiritual lesson they never, ever expected you to master. You do not have to loudly destroy someone's earthly life in order to win the war. You merely have to permanently revoke their energetic access to your aura. What truly terrified them to their core was not your righteous anger. It was that freezing moment your energy became completely, unapologetically unreadable to them. The illusion of load power. Chosen one, let us hit on a deep spiritual truth that your higher self might be quietly whispering right in this very moment. You might be wondering, why on earth did they underestimate your divine light so catastrophically? Why were they completely incapable of seeing the magnificent, ancient soul inside of you? Why did they consistently treat your precious presence like annoying background static, while you were quietly constructing yourself into the main event of the universe? Because souls trapped in those lower, dense frequencies only have the capacity to recognize 2 very specific types of earthly power: the obnoxiously loud kind and the entirely fake kind. They were deeply accustomed to dealing with toxic manipulators who always have to shout to appear dominant. They were used to interacting with pathological liars who constantly perform artificial confidence for the crowd. They were surrounded by spiritual cowards who construct fragile thrones entirely out of smoke and illusions. But you, my beautiful light, you were an entirely different species. You completely refused to participate in their low vibrational theatrics. You never begged for a seat at their table, and you never broadcasted your sacred moves. Your immense power was deeply internal, fiercely quiet, grounded and unshakably steady. And there is absolutely nothing that terrifies loud, chaotic frauds more than the presence of genuine, quiet spiritual power. They were not scared of you when you unconditionally loved them. They became absolutely petrified when you woke up and entirely stopped needing their validation. They were not afraid of your tears when you cried. They became horrified the exact moment you entirely stopped trying to explain your soul to them. They were not afraid when they successfully broke your heart. They were terrified when you meticulously rebuilt your own energetic foundation, stone by stone, without ever asking for a single drop of their help. You became a completely unpredictable, spiritually untouchable enigma, an unreadable force of nature. You became their ultimate existential threat, the poisoned well of karma. Let us dive even deeper into the quantum field. Chosen one, let us discuss exactly how you dismantled their entire reality without ever lifting a single physical finger, while they were aggressively sharpening their dull earthly swords, swinging them wildly in the air, just trying to look intimidating. You were silently mastering the entire spiritual terrain. You were learning precisely how their karmic machinery operates. You were not wasting your precious energy sharpening weapons to fight back. You were quietly poisoning the energetic well they constantly drank from. Not in a literal, malicious sense, obviously, but the profound metaphor stands perfectly. That is the exceptionally brilliant kind of master strategist your soul evolved into. While they were still struggling to learn the basic rules of the matrix, you were already ascending and completely rewriting the universal code. That is exactly what happens when lower entities make the fatal mistake of underestimating a divine thinker. They foolishly hand over their entire strategy, complete with blueprints, without even realizing they have done it. And do you want to know what part of this hits their soul even harder? They loudly labeled you as being far too forgiving, far too patient, far too emotional for this harsh world, as if those divine traits were somehow fatal character flaws. But what they failed to grasp was that your infinite patience was actually a brilliantly laid trap. Your beautiful forgiveness was an intensive spiritual test of their true character. Your flowing emotions were a universal decoder ring. You learned absolutely everything you ever needed to know about who they truly were, simply by standing back and watching exactly how their darkness treated your pure softness. And once you fully comprehended the toxic, twisted map of their heart, you realized you did not need to seek earthly revenge. Their own terrible, low-frequency decisions were going to be a severe enough karmic punishment all on their own. Let us drop a heavy piece of nostalgia on their fragile minds, chosen one. Take a journey back to that specific moment from your past timeline, where a particular someone arrogantly laughed at your genuine kindness, when they actively treated your bright light like it was a pathetic weakness, when they used your boundless compassion as a convenient doorway to continuously disrespect your boundaries. They truly thought they had scored a massive, permanent victory over you. But if you look at their energetic signature and their earthly life right now, the universe did not exactly reward that toxic behavior, did it? Watch as their artificial relationships inevitably crumble into dust. Watch as their earthly credibility completely dissolves into the ether. Watch as their fake reputation shrinks down to nothingness. Meanwhile, look at you. You continue to rise, slowly, steadily, and absolutely relentlessly. That identical smile they once so arrogantly dismissed as naive is the exact same smile that haunts their sleepless nights right now, because it permanently represents the exact moment they fumbled the bag, the moment they lost the one divine person in this entire universe they could never, ever replace. Elegance in the end here is another profound truth that your inner child is probably whispering inside your brilliant mind. Why on earth was I so incredibly patient with those toxic entities for so long? Because, my beautiful soul, your divine mind is wired to play the infinite, long games of the universe. Because your sacred heart refuses to move purely on lower dimensional impulse. Because the universe always strengthens its true chosen ones by sending them through violent spiritual storms, never by giving them easy earthly shortcuts. You did not lose a single ounce of your real power by remaining soft. You actually discovered it in its purest form. You fully integrated the knowledge that genuine, sovereign power never feels the need to rush. Real power patiently sits in the shadows, waiting for the perfect, ordained moment to dramatically reveal itself to the light. And that radiant smile of yours, it was the perfect mask. It was your impenetrable energetic shield, your flawless entry point straight into the very core of their blinding arrogance. What you ultimately destroyed was not actually their pathetic ego. You destroyed their entire grand illusion of control over your destiny. When you finally turned your back and walked away from their toxicity, wearing that exact same gentle, polite smile they had completely misinterpreted. You did not simply exit the battlefield. You completely and utterly ended the spiritual war. You did not dramatically slam any doors on your way out. You did not stoop to their level and scream. You did not waste your precious breath arguing with a brick wall. You simply closed that heavy karmic chapter with absolute regal elegance. And let me tell you, that is the exact part of the exit that completely wrecked their mental state. They were fully expecting a chaotic, messy reaction, but you handed them a deafening silence. They expected you to drown in tears, but you gave them blinding, terrifying clarity. They expected you to desperately beg for closure, and you gave them absolutely nothing. And giving them nothing was unequivocally the loudest, most devastating thing you have ever delivered in your entire life. Chosen one, mark my words, they will endlessly replay that beautiful smile in their heads for the rest of eternity. The very one they foolishly brushed off. The one they refused to respect or value. The smile that flawlessly hid the supreme mastermind that completely ended their toxic strategy. They will remember that flash of your teeth as the precise moment the cosmic board flipped on them. The horrifying moment the innocent pawn they ruthlessly mocked, instantly metamorphosed into the supreme player they now fiercely fear. The moment the angelic face they so deeply underestimated sat down and started playing fourth-dimensional chess like the very devil they never, ever saw coming. That soft smile did not physically kill empires, but it sure as hell killed their illusions. It slaughtered their lies. It completely obliterated their false sense of power. And now, as the dust finally settles on the matrix, the only true, sovereign empire that is still standing tall is yours. The magnificent kingdom you painstakingly built right out of the burning wreckage they so thoughtlessly gifted to you. Let us move our energy to the next massive revelation. Move number 2, the master behind the mask they never saw coming. It is incredibly funny, is it not? How loudly they bragged to everyone about beating you, while remaining completely, blissfully unaware that they were playing a highly rigged game that you yourself had designed. Chosen one, let us aggressively rip the heavy curtain right off this next universal truth, because it is finally time to fully expose the majestic, terrifying part of your soul that their fragile minds were never, ever prepared to face in this lifetime. They strutted around the matrix like peacocks, completely convinced they were playing a high-stakes match against an absolute amateur, as if you were just some wide-eyed, naive rookie stumbling blindly into a dangerous spiritual battlefield where you simply did not belong. They took one look at your genuine humility and instantly labeled it as incompetence. They mistook your profound inner silence for a state of perpetual confusion. They stared right at your radiant kindness and slapped a label of complete ignorance right on your forehead. And the entire time they were celebrating their fake wins. You were the Grand Master hiding seamlessly behind the innocent mask, quietly watching them dance like pathetic puppets on the energetic strings they did not even realize you were holding tightly in your hands. What they arrogantly called your cute innocence was simply your divine brilliance making the conscious, high-frequency choice not to brag about its immense power. They totally and fatally mistook your majestic silence for inner confusion, instead of recognizing it as high-level spiritual calculation. They simply did not have the energetic capacity to understand that authentic, divine power never needs to loudly introduce itself to the room. True power sits in the corner entirely quietly, blissfully watching the loud, chaotic frauds completely choke on their own pathetic performance. They clearly never learned the most ancient universal rule of the matrix. The one soul who talks the absolute least always knows the absolute most. Your heavy silence was never a sign of earthly weakness. It was a state of advanced, continuous energetic surveillance. Imagine this pathetic dynamic playing out. They are sitting there, proudly and obnoxiously explaining a basic strategy to you, completely convinced that your soul is deeply impressed. Meanwhile, behind your quiet eyes, you are surgically dissecting every single ounce of insecurity hiding just beneath the surface of their trembling voice. They genuinely believe they are teaching you how to play checkers, while you are meticulously memorizing every microscopic crack in their spiritual armor. They arrogantly assumed you were just a naive student of the world, but you were actually the grand cosmic archivist, carefully collecting undeniable evidence for their eventual, spectacular collapse. They mansplained and lectured you on basic, earthly concepts that your soul had already mastered lifetimes ago. They talked down to you with the sickening confidence of a dense entity who wrongly assumed you were vibrating entirely beneath them. You simply stayed profoundly quiet. Not because your brilliant mind lacked the correct answers, but because their unbridled arrogance was freely handing you infinitely more intel than their honesty ever possibly could. Every single smug, self-serving explanation that fell from their lips was just another shiny breadcrumb, directly leading them straight into their own catastrophic defeat. Chosen one, perhaps you have sat in your sacred space and wondered, was staying so entirely silent actually the right karmic move? Should I have spoken up and defended my light sooner? Absolutely not. Your silence was the sharp, lethal blade they unknowingly handed right into your palms. With every toxic joke they made, with every patronizing, lower-dimensional comment they muttered, with every arrogant display of fake dominance, they fully revealed massive, energetic blind spots they swore they did not have. And while they were incredibly busy performing artificial intelligence for the crowd, you were quietly constructing a flawless psychological map of their entire nervous system. You effortlessly played dumb while getting infinitely sharper. You masterfully played weak while continuously building unstoppable divine power. You flawlessly played lost while silently memorizing every single emergency exit in the room that they didn't even know existed. They arrogantly thought they were shaping your earthly destiny, but you were actively shaping their permanent downfall in real time. Let us elevate the frequency and keep going. Move number 5. The ego you forged into their own demolition divisi, the precise moment their dense minds actually believed they were vibrating above you. That was the exact cosmic moment you completely and utterly owned their entire reality. They strutted blindly around the matrix with an ego so ridiculously oversized, it completely blocked their spiritual vision. And you, in all your divine brilliance, used that massive ego against them like a masterfully forged weapon of light. Their foolish pride instantly became your ultimate energetic shield, flawlessly deflecting every single insult they threw. Because arrogantly toxic people always swing their weapons entirely blindly in the dark. Their delusional certainty became their inescapable trap. Because only complete spiritual fools sprint confidently into rooms they have never bothered to energetically scan. You never even needed to outmuscle their earthly strength. You simply stepped aside and let them completely outstupid themselves. Their pathetic superiority complex was not just deeply annoying to your aura. It was a highly sensitive self-destruct button that you brilliantly disguised as admiration. Imagine this scene in the 3D reality. They are bragging loudly, talking big with their chest completely puffed out like a cheap parade float, blindly assuming you are totally mesmerized by their presence. Meanwhile, in the higher dimensions, you are actively directing the entire karmic scene like a quiet, masterful puppet master. They completely believed they were running the earthly show. But you were writing the permanent cosmic script. You were never, ever reacting to their predictable moves. You were consciously shaping them. Every single time they flexed their fake power, you simply tightened the energetic leash. Every single time they loudly bragged, you perfectly mapped another flaw of their collapsing matrix. They practically gift-wrapped massive amounts of psychic intel for you, completely blinded by their own arrogance. And you gracefully accepted it with that calm, completely unreadable smile that absolutely keeps their guilty conscience awake at 3 a.m. You did not beat them with low vibrational force. You completely obliterated them with the immense, crushing gravity of their own severe delusion. They never even knew you were not actually playing their petty earthly game. You were busy building an entirely new timeline right underneath their clumsy feet, while they desperately chased superficial trophies made entirely out of cheap, external validation. You actively claimed something far, far more spiritually dangerous. You claimed their ultimate trust, while they obsessively focused on securing small, temporary, meaningless wins. You flawlessly captured their entire confidence. That was the one precious piece they desperately should have protected with their lives. But they never did. They never, in a million lifetimes, imagined that someone so incredibly soft-spoken and gentle could possibly architect their total downfall with such devastating, royal elegance. And when the timeline shifted and you finally revealed the magnificent structure you had been meticulously constructing right behind that angelic smile, the brilliant blueprint, the inescapable trap, the final cosmic checkmate, the horrific look on their earthly faces was absolutely legendary. Pure, unadulterated confusion, sickening horror, the deep sting of total betrayal, and the crushing weight of sudden realization. They truly thought they were the grand rulers of the universal board. They had absolutely no idea that you were the divine creator who built the board from scratch. Let us push this frequency even higher. Move number 6, the demonic strategy hiding in that heavenly smirkty spent their entire lives deeply fearing the dark energy of the devil. But the only real, true threat to their matrix was the pure angel who flawlessly learned exactly how to think just like him. Right behind that gentle, polite, completely harmless smile of yours, your sovereign mind was operating like a full-blown quantum supercomputer, humming flawlessly in absolute silence. Every single mundane conversation you had with them was actually a highly advanced data collection protocol. Every gentle laugh, every polite compliment you offered, every harmless little chat about the weather was actually top-tier intelligence gathering, perfectly wrapped in the disguise of sweet innocence. They thought you were just being a polite, accommodating empath, but you were actively performing deep psychological surgery on them while they willingly handed you all the sharpest tools. Your silence was never an empty void. It was the pressurized chamber where you quietly loaded your karmic ammunition. Imagine this. You are sitting right across from their toxic energy, gently nodding your head in total silence while they babble on, completely thinking you are fascinated. Meanwhile, you are actively dissecting their entire fragile psychology in absolute real time. You are meticulously recording every single tiny pause. You are tracking every micro-hesitation, every nervous twitch flashing in their guilty eyes. You are mathematically analyzing their vocal tone the exact same way Wall Street analysts desperately decode chaotic patterns right before a massive market crash. Absolutely nothing they did ever slip past your divine radar. Every single micro-expression they foolishly thought was invisible to the naked eye was permanently catalogued right into your impenetrable mental vault. And here is the truly wild part of your genius. You became exactly the reflection they desperately needed you to be. You mirrored being soft, slightly confused, and totally dismissible. You did not resist playing the passive role for a second. You embodied the character so entirely perfectly that it completely trapped them inside their own comfortable delusions. You reflected an illusion of absolute safety right back into their eyes, until it completely and utterly smothered their basic earthly caution. You never actually lied to them. You just effortlessly allowed their own blinding arrogance to fill in all the blank spaces of the story. Their own toxic assumptions became the heavy, karmic rope they happily hung themselves with. You outwardly showed them infinite patience, but inwardly, you completely hid your ruthless calculations. You revealed a warm, loving kindness to their face, but you perfectly concealed your divine ruthlessness in the shadows. You graciously let them believe they were successfully reading your aura, when in cold, hard reality, they were just reading a fictional character that you had brilliantly authored just for them. They only ever got to see the tiny, sparkling tip of your massive, energetic iceberg. The cute, innocent smile, the polite, accommodating nod, the perfectly calm, zen-like posture. But lurking right beneath that pristine surface, there was a massive, ancient energy so incredibly vast and freezing cold, it could effortlessly sink their entire fleet without a single warning siren. Imagine looking at the dark ocean at midnight, completely smooth and glassy on the top, but holding catastrophic, crushing pressure underneath. That was exactly you, and they sailed their fragile little paper boats straight into your depths, foolishly thinking they owned the crashing waves. Let us continue to break it all down. Move number 7. The trust that turned into a beautifully baited execution. They did not accidentally trip and fall into your energetic trap. They proudly and aggressively stepped right into it, completely thinking it was a supreme honor just to be invited. Even in your absolute most genuine, tender moments of earthly connection, your sovereign mind never once stopped running massive karmic calculations in the deep background of your consciousness. Not because you have a cold heart, not because you are some heartless entity devoid of empathy, but because your soul learned the devastating, excruciating price of giving out blind trust the absolute hard way. You learned through fire that radiating pure kindness without maintaining sharp situational awareness just becomes a free, all-you-can-eat buffet for dark matrix predators. You completely integrated the lesson that handing out trust without demanding strict verification is basically the equivalent of handing a demon the master keys to your own spiritual downfall. Exuding pure warmth without wearing spiritual armor is exactly how beautiful lightworkers get slaughtered in the 3D realm. And you completely, fiercely refused to ever die like that again. So your soul rapidly adapted to the environment. You became incredibly warm to the touch, but highly prepared for spiritual warfare. You remained deeply affectionate, but heavily armored in divine light. You were totally soft on the physical surface, but razor sharp at the very core of your being. You freely showed them unconditional love, yes, but you also intensely studied their every move. You graciously offered them deep human connection, but you also continuously observed their true intentions. You never actually closed off your beautiful heart chakra. You simply upgraded its operating system with a high-frequency security firewall that absolutely no one in their dense circle knew how to bypass. They truly thought they were getting unlimited VIP access to pure, gullible innocence, but they were actually just being granted highly restricted, monitored access to an impenetrable cosmic fortress. Imagine this specific scenario. They are confidently walking through a beautiful, vibrant field of blooming flowers, smiling widely, feeling entirely relaxed, soaking in the warm sunlight of your presence. They genuinely think they are just taking a pleasant stroll through a magical garden that you lovingly curated purely for their enjoyment. What their primitive minds entirely failed to realize is that this beautiful garden was actually a heavily fortified gladiatorial arena. Every single walking path was deeply intentional. Every open doorway was perfectly placed bait. Every gentle, loving gesture was an intense psychological test that they had absolutely no idea they were taking. And they failed it spectacularly. You did not have to trap them with manipulative lies. You simply trapped them with the glaring, blinding truth that their toxic egos completely refused to look at. And when the universal timeline finally arrived at the ordained moment of truth, every single ounce of that quiet patience paid off like massive compound interest in the spiritual bank. They confidently strutted straight into your flawless setup, entirely thinking they were the dominant ones leading the entire interaction. They thought their toxic, superficial charm was actually working on your aura. They thought their shady, low-level manipulation tactics were totally invisible to your third eye. They fully thought their pathetic little mind games were successfully bending your strong will. Meanwhile, you had already accurately predicted their next desperate move. Exactly 3-dimensional layers deep, you had already silently called checkmate in 3 entirely different, devastating ways before they even realized the universal game had completely shifted frequencies. They were obsessively playing just to win the fleeting, temporary moment. You were playing to permanently end the entire karmic story. That is exactly why their inevitable collapse felt so terrifyingly instant to them. That is why the pale shock painted across their face was so incredibly, beautifully pure. They honestly thought that giving them your trust made you entirely vulnerable to their attacks. They never, ever imagined for a single second that your beautiful, shining trust was actually the lethal bait. They never truly fell blindly into your energetic trap. They actually constructed the entire mechanism with their own bare hands, loudly bragged about their architectural skills, and then walked proudly right into the execution chamber. Chosen one, this is exactly the phase where your divine genius stops being politely subtle and becomes downright, terrifyingly lethal to their lower frequencies. You did not force their toxic hand into making a single earthly move. You did not manipulate their free will, pressure their aura, or maliciously trick them into anything. You simply handed them exactly what their dark, insatiable ego continuously craved: endless artificial validation, superficial attention, and the grand illusion of power. And every single solitary thing they greedily took from your light became another heavy, karmic chain that they joyfully wrapped tightly around their own energetic neck. Give a spiritual fool an abundance of unearned confidence, and they will enthusiastically bury themselves 6 feet deep, without you ever having to lift a single physical finger. You gently handed out earthly compliments like tiny, shiny breadcrumbs, and they followed them entirely blindly into the dark woods. You consistently offered them a radiant warmth, and their dense minds immediately mistook it for total submission to their will. You displayed raw human vulnerability, and their toxic psychology immediately labeled it as leverage they could exploit. They completely and utterly believed they were sovereignly controlling the earthly narrative, never realizing for a fraction of a second that you were simply letting them meticulously write their own permanent downfall, line by agonizing line. Imagine the patience of a master spider. It never frantically chases the erratic flies around the room. It simply constructs a geometrically flawless web and sits back quietly, waiting for pure arrogance to do all the heavy lifting. That was precisely your frequency. You were not the erratic aggressor, you were the grand, divine architect. You did not aggressively back them into tight, uncomfortable corners. They simply wandered directly into your domain, acting cocky and careless, genuinely thinking their energy was invincible, deeply believing that your soul was entirely predictable. Every single pathetic attempt they made to manipulate your light was just another sticky thread you calmly added to the cosmic web. Every toxic lie, every selfish, lower-dimensional demand, every smug little moment where they arrogantly believed your vibration was beneath them, all of it securely locked them deeper and deeper into your grand design. They were not successfully outsmarting your higher self. They were merely performing their glaring weaknesses in absolute high definition for the entire universe to witness. They were not actively trapped by your malicious intent. They were trapped purely because of the dark nature of who they actually are. You just sat there and waited patiently, moving quietly, vibrating dangerously. You timed every single universal response with immaculate precision. You let their earthly guard drop entirely naturally. You let their toxic confidence reach its absolute peak organically. You allowed them to feel completely and utterly untouchable. Because that is exactly the precise moment when fools are the easiest to energetically collapse. And then, slowly, methodically, and beautifully, you unveiled the blinding truth. The sweet smile they thought was so incredibly harmless had been running lethal calculations the entire time. The soft nature they ruthlessly mocked had been intensely observing their every flaw. The profound silence they tragically misread had been strategizing their complete destruction. The gentle angel they genuinely thought they understood so well, yes, that same beautiful angel, had been flawlessly playing grandmaster chess while they were still loudly arguing over which tiny piece was the king. They honestly believed that true power was always loud and chaotic, and you gracefully showed them that supreme power is terrifyingly quiet. They thought true control was aggressive and abusive, and you proved to them that it is surgical and precise. They thought they were dominating the game, and you elegantly showed them they were merely the crude weapon you forged to destroy itself. Move number 9. The revelation that continues to haunt their reality. They did not just simply realize the true magnitude of who you really were. They realized exactly how loudly they had exposed their own darkness while you merely sat in perfect silence. Chosen one, this is the massive karmic debt they will never, ever be able to outrun in this lifetime. The precise moment the universal truth finally detonated inside their dense mind. It was not loud, and it was certainly not cinematic. It was incredibly quiet, deeply surgical, and absolutely universally devastating. One split second, they were entirely smug and relaxed, fully convinced they had your entire soul figured out. The very next second, profound confusion shot violently across their earthly face like a digital matrix glitch. Deep recognition quickly followed like a heavy, physical slap, and then the freezing terror finally settled into their bones. That cold, sinking, paralyzing fear that only materializes when a dark entity suddenly realizes they were never the apex hunter. They were just the subject of a grand cosmic experiment. They did not miraculously lose their earthly power. They made the horrifying discovery that they never actually possessed any real power to begin with. They instantly started obsessively replaying every single conversation your souls ever had, every radiant smile you ever freely gave, every heavy silence you ever beautifully held, every mundane moment they foolishly dismissed as your pure innocence. And for the very first time in their entire existence, their third eye was forced open to see it. The flawless pattern, the divine symmetry, the unmistakable, terrifying intelligence threaded perfectly through the memories they once treated as entirely irrelevant. Imagine this scenario in the physical realm. A complex puzzle sits completely ignored on a dusty table for agonizing months. Then one random day, someone accidentally pieces it perfectly together and horrifyingly realizes the final image was not random at all. It was a highly detailed map of their own impending downfall. That is exactly what your shared past timeline ultimately became to their psyche. A fully formed energetic blueprint, a masterful design they completely failed to notice because they were entirely too busy staring at their own reflection. They did not accidentally misread the universal signs. They willfully ignored the signs because the blinding truth deeply threatened their fragile ego. It suddenly hit their nervous system that you never frantically reacted. You masterfully orchestrated. You never panicked under their pressure. You accurately predicted. You never desperately fought for control over the dynamic. You simply held the control the entire time. They were never your worthy opponents on the battlefield. They were merely crude instruments, disposable tools, tiny, insignificant movements in a much larger, magnificent cosmic symphony that they never even realized they were participating in. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated shock vibrating through their aura when they finally understood that the angelic smile they so deeply underestimated actually belonged to the supreme mastermind behind the entire earthly operation. That every seemingly innocent, naive move was meticulously deliberate. That every soft, tender moment flawlessly hid razor-sharp, lethal calculation. That the entire karmic game, the whole twisted timeline, the entire narrative story, had belonged strictly to you from the very first second. And chosen one, that massive revelation did not just humble their earthly pride. It completely dismantled their entire reality. Move number 10. The ultimate cosmic checkmate. They did not lose this universal game because you were a cruel or malicious soul. They lost the game because your divine victory was absolutely inevitable. Chosen one, this is exactly the part of the timeline that keeps their guilty conscience wide awake at night, staring blankly at their ceiling like it magically holds the spiritual answers they stubbornly refused to learn when they actually had the chance. They constantly ask themselves the exact same agonizing questions on a toxic, endless loop, like a broken record made entirely of pure regret. How long were you secretly planning this magnificent exit? Infinitely longer than their pathetic ego can even begin to comprehend. When did your intuition actually figure them out? Long before they ever even opened their mouths to introduce themselves. Was any part of the energetic exchange genuinely real? Only the specific parts that truly mattered to the higher realms. And the absolute poetic cruelty of their karmic punishment is that they will never, ever know the truth. They will never know which moments were your genuine, radiant warmth, and which were simply data points you quietly filed away for their later destruction. They were never actually confused by your physical actions. They were deeply, irreparably confused by your supreme intelligence. Imagine this. They finally take a massive step back, frantically replaying every single shared moment with you like desperate detectives in a gritty crime drama, endlessly searching for missing clues they aggressively swore never existed. Only now do they clearly realize that the universal signs were absolutely always there. The unwavering steadiness of your beautiful smile, the profound, ancient quiet hiding deep in your eyes, The terrifying way you always seem to intuitively know dark things they never, ever dared to say out loud. But why did they completely fail to see it sooner? The answer is beautifully simple. They were far too busy arrogantly looking down on your frequency to even notice that you were looking straight through their entire soul. You did not waste energy analyzing the fake mask they showed the world. You surgically analyzed the deep trauma they desperately hid in the shadows. And here is the absolute truth that terrifies them the most. You are not angry at their betrayal. You are not bitter about the past. And you are certainly not aggressively plotting any earthly revenge. You are completely calm. You are divinely composed. You are still beautifully smiling. But now, finally, their dense minds truly understand what that radiant smile actually means. It was never the naive kindness they so foolishly misread. It was the supreme patience of an ancient soul who already knew exactly how the story would end. This smile is no longer soft and accommodating to their darkness. It is not the desperate smile of someone begging to be chosen, understood, or respected by lower entities. It is the sovereign smile of the grand architect who held the entire cosmic map the whole time. Someone who clearly saw all the pathetic traps, the toxic lies, the predictable patterns, and still chose to move with absolute grace. Because you already knew exactly how their karmic story was destined to crash and burn. Imagine the heavy moment they finally grasped this truth. The suffocating silence expanding in their chest, the sickening drop in their stomach. The paralyzing sensation of being outplayed so deeply, so thoroughly, that they didn't even realize the universal game was entirely over until the board was completely empty. You did not ever need to gloat about your victory. You did not need to go on a toxic rant on social media. You did not need to desperately justify a single thing to the public. The empty chessboard spoke volumes for you. Every single pawn they lost, every clumsy move they tragically wasted, every toxic assumption that violently shattered right in their greedy hands. Checkmate, game entirely over, and the final, brutal lesson they never, ever stood a chance against. Someone who can smile with the light of an angel, but strategize with the precision of the devil himself. Move number 11, the wreckage of their dusty, did not merely lose access to your brilliant light. They permanently lost the fake, inflated version of themselves that genuinely believed they were spiritually untouchable. Chosen one, let us take one final walk through the smoking wreckage you left behind. Not out of low vibrational spite, but out of absolute divine truth. Their artificial confidence did not just crack under the pressure. It violently shattered into a million pieces, like thin glass completely crushed under a heavyweight, energetic punch. The lingering aftermath of your exit is not loud. It is terrifyingly subtle, completely psychological, and absolutely permanent. They must walk through their earthly life entirely differently now, constantly flinching at tiny energetic shifts they never even noticed before, obsessively questioning absolutely everything they once believed was a solid, undeniable fact. Because there is absolutely nothing that haunts a dark manipulator more than finally realizing that the quiet, gentle empath actually saw absolutely everything from the start. Now, their paranoia runs so deep they cannot even look at a single person the same way ever again. You completely rewired their entire nervous system. You did not just expose their darkness to the world. You forcefully held up a massive cosmic mirror and made them finally see the truth of themselves. And that specific kind of horrifying self-recognition is a living nightmare they can never, ever wake up from. Every single kind gesture they receive in the future will feel deeply suspicious to their spirit. Every warm, inviting smile they see will look like it is hiding razor-sharp, lethal edges. Every soft, loving voice will instantly sound like a perfectly laid trap, because once a dark entity has been completely outplayed by a being of light who smiled like a literal angel while calculating like a masterful devil. Basic human trust does not just slowly fade away, it entirely collapses into the void. Imagine this dark timeline for them. They finally meet someone genuinely kind, and instead of feeling a sense of safety, their entire nervous system freezes in pure terror. They desperately search the interaction for hidden patterns. They frantically analyze vocal tones. They anxiously scan for dark motives. The exact same way you quietly scanned them. You literally became the permanent blueprint for all of their future fear. Not because you actively harmed their soul, but simply because you held up the light and showed them exactly how their own blinding arrogance destroyed them. They were never actually afraid of your physical presence. They were terrified of how effortlessly your higher self saw right through their pathetic illusions. Chosen one, here is the final, supreme truth that hits their soul the absolute deepest. You did not destroy their confidence. Their own fake confidence completely destroyed itself the exact moment it tragically collided with a divine being who was already thinking 10 lifetimes ahead. You did not traumatize their spirit. You simply exposed their karma. You did not teach them to live in paranoia. You taught them a brutal masterclass in universal humility. And the most beautifully poetic part of this entire cosmic story: they will never, ever underestimate a quiet smile again. Not your beautiful smile, not a stranger's smile, not ever again in this lifetime. You permanently became the lingering ghost haunting their fragile psychology. The eternal reminder that true sovereign power does not always need to roar. Sometimes, divine power just smiles incredibly quietly and entirely wins the game. And here we stand, chosen one, right at the absolute edge of the karmic story that you completely flipped upside down. You did not just barely survive their dark, toxic game. You completely rewrote the code, masterfully outplayed it, and walked away into the light, smiling radiantly while they desperately tried to understand the smoking ruins left behind. If this profound frequency resonated deep within the divine strategist inside your soul, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and boldly drop 777 down in the comments to anchor this magnificent energy. Share this truth with someone who needs to remember their power. Stay radiant, stay dangerous, and until next time, keep your vibration untouchable.